Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to DEP's public hearing on the proposed NPDES permit application. My name is Elspeth Cayley, Regional Environmental Justice Coordinator. I'm facilitating this hearing for the Department of Environmental Protection. I officially call this hearing to order at 4:56 p.m. A stenographer will be transcribing the hearing. The purpose of this hearing is to formally accept testimony on the proposed NPDES permit application. DEP will accept comments on the documentation and plans associated with the individual NPDES permit application number PAD 320011 for the discharge of stormwater from construction activities to the following receiving watercourses: Muddy Run, Black Lick Creek, and various unnamed tributaries to Muddy Run and Black Lick Creek cold water fishes. To give everyone an equal opportunity to comment on this application, I would like to establish the following ground rules. I'll call upon the witnesses who have signed up to testify at this hearing. All who signed up were assigned a number indicating the order in which witnesses will be called to speak. If time permits, we'll open the floor to individuals that wish to provide testimony and did not pre-register. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes for each witness. Please notice that written and spoken testimony both carry the same weight. If you should run out of time for your spoken testimony, DEP will review the rest of your comments from the written testimony you submit after the hearing. Testimony is not required to be 5 minutes long. If others who provide testimony before you are making similar statements to yours, you're free to shorten or summarize your verbal testimony at this time and still provide your full testimony at the end of the evening. This will allow us to hear from more commenters at this hearing. DEP would appreciate your help by spelling out your name and terms that may not be generally familiar so that the transcript can be as accurate as possible. Because of the purpose of a hearing is to receive comments on the application, DEP staff cannot address questions about the application during the duration of the hearing. The permit reviewer and the program managers are here to hear your testimony, though. All testimony received at this hearing, as well as written comments received this evening, will be considered by DEP and will be included in the comment response document, which will be prepared and reviewed by DEP prior to taking its final action on this application. So I would like to invite my first commenters to come to the mic. Number one on my list is Amanda Zahner, and if you know that you're number 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, you can line up on this side to the mic or this side. If you did not get your number after Amanda Zahner, we have Susan Comfort, Dana Driscoll, Jessica Jopp, and then J. Ting Walker can line up.
How did I get it between you two?
Thank
Are you two?
you. All right, Amanda Zahner, go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Amanda Zahner, A-M-A-N-D-A-Z-A-N-E-R, and I am speaking in opposition of the current Chapter 102 individual NPDES permit application for the HCPP pipeline as reviewed on behalf of Three Rivers Waterkeeper, which serves as both a scientific and legal advocate for the Allegheny, Monongahela, and Ohio rivers along with their watersheds here. This application brings significant risk of additional stream impairment and sediment pollution within the Black Lick Creek watershed. The project proposes more than 100 acres of earth disturbance across Black Lick, Burl, and Center Townships, including at least 21 stream crossings and numerous disturbances adjacent to tributaries, drainage features, and wetlands that ultimately discharge into Muddy Run, Black Lick Creek, and several unnamed tributaries. These receiving waters are already designated as impaired for siltation under Section 303D of the Clean Water Act, and they are classified all as cold water fishes. This makes them particularly sensitive to sediment loading, temperature increases, and stream bank destabilization. The scale and intensity of the proposed construction activities, including trenching, clearing, grading, steep slope disturbances, and horizontal directional drilling, all create substantial risks for erosion, sediment transport, stream bank failures, and long-term degradation of aquatic habitat. The The application materials identified extensive disturbances within headwater systems and forested stream corridors that also play a critical role in maintaining the water quality and thermal protection for these downstream waters. Once these areas are disturbed, sediment can move rapidly into streams during storm events, increase turbidity, embed stream substrates, further degrade microinvertebrate habitat, and impair aquatic life that are already stressed within this watershed. While the application references erosion and sediment control best management practices, generalized commitments are not sufficient per a project with this many crossings and this level of watershed sensitivity. The Department of Environmental Protection should require stronger enforceable permit conditions that specifically address sediment-related impacts, include real-time turbidity monitoring at stream crossings, mandatory post-construction stream restoration monitoring, clear stop work triggers when sediment controls fail, and site-specific contingency plans for heavy rain events and inadvertent drilling fluid releases. Given the cumulative nature of the disturbances proposed throughout the watershed, the department should also evaluate the combined impacts of repeated stream and wetland disturbances rather than reviewing each crossing in isolation. We continue to urge the department to require additional analysis and stronger protection measures, especially given the existing impairments within the Black Lick Creek watershed and substantial unresolved concerns regarding sedimentation and stream disturbance impacts. Three Rivers Waterkeeper opposes issuance of this permit, especially unless it can demonstrate that the project will fully protect water quality and prevent further degradation of these already impaired waters, in addition to addressing all community concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Comfort, you're next.
Excuse me, half the room just filled up. You started a little early. Could you do your introduction again, please?
The introduction?
Yeah, your introduction again. Could you do it?
Okay, sure. So my name is Elspeth Cayley. The hearing has begun. The purpose of the hearing is to formally accept testimony on the proposed MPDES permit application. DEP will accept comments on the documentation and plans associated with the individual MPDES permit application number PAD 320011 for the discharge of stormwater from construction activities to the following receiving watercourses: Muddy Run, Black Lick Creek, and various unnamed tributaries to Muddy Run and Black Lick Creek cold water fishes. Susan, go ahead.
Okay, I'm Susan Comfort, a 32-year resident of Indiana County and Indiana Borough. I'm here today to express my opposition to this project and some of my concerns and questions. As I understand it, this 5.8-mile pipeline, which is to deliver fracked gas to the proposed 4.4 gigawatt power plant, poses many environmental risks to at least 31 stream crossings. It will involve clear-cutting nearly 25 acres of trees and also significant earth disturbance on approximately 100 acres of land, producing immediate likely impacts of flooding, erosion, sediment buildup along altered and denuded stream beds. These impacts will obviously be a serious problem for residents and wildlife living near the construction. But what most people don't realize is that the pipeline also poses grave environmental and health risks from cumulative impacts. Indeed, the pipeline is yet one more development project, potentially compounding impacts from previous groundwater and surface water pollution produced by decades of operations at the former Homer City coal burning plant. There is currently an unimaginable 250 million tons of coal waste at the site of the old plant nearby to the pipeline. According to the Environmental Integrity Project, data from 31 groundwater monitoring wells at the site demonstrates that 24 of those have been polluted above federal advisory levels. Groundwater at the site contains unsafe levels of dangerous toxins like arsenic, lead, cadmium, which, by the way, has a half-life of between 15 and 30 years. It's classified as one of the most dangerous carcinogenic heavy metals. Many people in the audience today also may not know that Homer City has been designated an environmental justice community by the DEP, meaning Homer City is among low-income cities and towns across Pennsylvania that shoulder a disproportionate burden of pollution, ill health, and economic hardship from past development. For example, Homer City ranks in the 83rd percentile of cancer rates in the state, and the 85th percentile in terms of pollution burden, and the 62nd percentile of poverty rates, and the 68th percentile in unemployment rates. The HCR pipeline project will just increase these burdens. Quite literally, the pipeline site is a sacrifice zone, given that the developers are sacrificing our water and land in exchange for payment into a so-called mitigation bank, allowing them to pay for remediation elsewhere in the state instead of remediating our water and land here. The HCR project will also likely worsen the burdens of economic hardship. Yes, there are many construction jobs, but short-term job growth comes at the expense of long-term livelihoods of area farmers and small businesses that depend on clean streams and groundwater. The HCR project also exploits our area's natural wealth of plentiful water and open space, foreclosing possibilities for more sustainable and sound growth of jobs in the future. This is the saddest part of this project. It is what indigenous people call a future eater, because it despoils the land, air, and water to fatten the wealthy now so that nothing is left for future generations. My questions are, what is the DEP doing to ensure that the proposed pipeline does not compound past social and environmental impacts? What is the DEP doing to adhere to PA environmental justice law that industry not impose more pollution and hardship on an already stressed community? What is the DEP doing as our public trustee to ensure rights spelled out in the PA Constitution to clean air, pure water, and a future of bounteous natural wealth? I think these questions should compel the DEP to deny the permit application. Homer City and Indiana County deserve robust oversight that protects our health, our natural wealth, and our future economic development. And we deserve leadership with an eye to that future, not an obsession with the past. Thank you.
Thank you. And that was Susan Comfort. If you didn't get that. Next, Dana Driscoll, please.
My name is Dana Driscoll. I'm a resident of Indiana County for the last 11 years, and I've spent most of my life living in Western PA. I work full-time here, and I also have a farm. I'm speaking in strong opposition to this permit and to the entire Homer City redevelopment project. I grew up in Cambria County, where nearly all of our local streams are polluted from acid mine drainage. What the AMD situation in Pennsylvania shows is that industries never clean up their pollution, and the permanent damage to waterways from said industries is a centuries-old problem. What we see from this historical legacy is that we need strong environmental protections, not just at the start of projects, but well after the bubble bursts and the companies take their cash and leave. And there is strong evidence that this AI bubble will burst. At present, there is a 1 million gallon oil spill in Washington County, PA that the DEP has done nothing to address. This is a concrete example in Pennsylvania of what can go wrong with this pipeline. I lived and worked in Michigan during the Flint River oil spill, and I saw it firsthand. This is an example where the lack of environmental regulations and the lack of monitoring caused significant harm. I also lived in Michigan during the construction of Enbridge's Line 5B, which carries liquid natural gas, just like this proposed pipeline. I witnessed firsthand the ecological and community destruction of this pipeline, not only across streams and wetlands with problematic things like scent backfill and deforestation, just as this pipeline proposed, but also the long-term impact of this pipeline on surrounding community and homes. We do not want this here. As someone who currently has a farm, I'm also very concerned about the destruction of streams and wetlands with the ongoing droughts we're now facing in Pennsylvania. My farm is in the watershed that this pipeline will be impacting. I'm deeply concerned about water use for this whole project and the fact that it will compromise people's drinking water, water for agriculture, and water for all life. And I will note that we have no idea how much water is actually going to be used by this project. On January 20th, 2026, the United Nations has indicated that the world has entered a global water bankruptcy, with over 70% of the population globally as water insecure. This is evident all through the country and in our own ecosystem with the droughts. Right now, this very moment, we're thankfully not in a drought, but most of the rest of the United States is, and if you look at the drought monitor, you'll see it's actually one of the worst droughts we have ever experienced in our lifetimes. Since I'm on the land every day with my farm, I can also tell you that since 2020, due to climate change, we now have almost yearly droughts. We had a drought in 2020, 2021, 2023, 2024, 2025, and last year we had a flash drought in July, which started with almost 11 weeks of no rain, and we were only out of that drought in February 2026. Maybe there's a pattern here. The pattern is that under increasing drought stress, making water resources scarcer and more polluted is a problem. We cannot afford to destroy our watershed. What I have outlined above is that we have ample evidence that pipelines like this destroy our streams and waterways, imperil our watershed, and leave a lasting legacy of negative impact on community health and environment. We have it happening right now in Washington County. We saw it in Michigan, and we will see it in Indiana County if this is approved. This ecosystem, already under duress from multiple yearly droughts and a changing climate, cannot handle the destruction of what they are proposing. My primary request is to deny this pipeline and to deny this entire project. It is against the Pennsylvania Environmental Rights Amendment and has the potential to deny every citizen of Indiana County access to clean air, pure water, and the preservation of the ecosystem. If you insist on moving forward, then I have other points for you to consider. My question is, after this pipeline is constructed, how will you monitor it regularly in case of spills so we can avoid what happened in Washington and in Michigan? Given what happened in Washington County, I'm also requesting that you set up a permanent fund that's for us to address spills, a fund that the company pays up front to ensure we can clean up messes. As I've shared above, many extractive industries have come and gone, and we have a legacy of their polluted rivers and streams throughout our entire watershed. How can the DEP ensure that even if this project too fails, because we are in a bubble, the community will not have to bear the long-term burden of more pollution? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask that, Jessica, just 2 seconds. I'm going to ask that J. Ting Walker lines up, Tamara Whited, please, Kathy Eckenrode, please, and Jane Kaminsky, please. Go ahead, Jessica.
Hello, my name is Jessica Jopp. My comments today will focus on the frack gas component of the plan. The evidence I will present comes from years of environmental and health-related degradation experienced by Pennsylvanians from the fracking industry. Here's what a frack gas pipeline brings. A 2-year investigation was conducted by the Environmental Health News in southwestern Pennsylvania to determine the extent of harm to people from fracking. The reporter, Katrina Maruzik, details some of the physical and mental strain her study found. Unexplained nosebleeds, rashes, and migraines are just some of the health problems reported by residents who live near fracking activity. The researchers tested people's urine for fracking chemicals. She explains that they collected samples in the study for about a 9-week period. We had a lab look for the fracking chemicals, things like benzene, toluene, and volatile organic chemicals. They found that these families had significantly higher than average levels of a lot of these compounds. All 20 people in the study exceeded not only the average, but also the 95th percentile, which is the level that 95% of Americans fall below for some of these chemicals. One example, a urine sample for 1 day from a 9-year-old boy who hung around his house that same day showed a level of hippuric acid, a biomarker that forms when the body is exposed to toluene, that was nearly 5 times as high as the US 95th percentile. Toluene is linked to skin, eye, and respiratory irritation, drowsiness, and dizziness. With chronic exposure, it can cause infertility or damage to the nervous system, liver, and kidneys. They interviewed a father whose well water was contaminated. He was told by the DEP and the fracking company that they should just switch to bottled water to be safe. Ryan, his son, who was 2 years old when the well went in, developed rashes, and he's had pretty severe gastrointestinal problems. His asthma became worse. They're drinking bottled water, but they still have to bathe in their well water. And Ryan has come out of the shower multiple times with sores on his body, presumably from bathing in this contaminated water. Given that thousands of households in our region rely daily on well water, the concern here for both physical and mental health cannot be overstated. The study indicated that people are exposed to toxins through the water and also through air emissions from the sites. Clearly, people living near these fracking wells are sickened, but it's looking more and more like it's a larger region and a larger number of people who are impacted by these emissions than we used to think. What does this record of harm mean for the current context? Here are the estimates. With the average production of a Pennsylvania gas well in mind, 250 new fracked gas wells would have to be drilled to supply the Homer City plant. Since well production plummets after just a few years, another 250 wells would need to be drilled every 5 years or so. Let's look at the legacy of degradation we will be adding on to if this pipeline plan goes through. A recent investigation into fracking waste in Pennsylvania reveals lax oversight, increased radioactivity in frack waste, and evidence of water contamination. This January 2026 article references the waste being produced. The estimate is 8.8 million tons of solid waste from 2017 to 2024. Kylie Bentz, the reporter, says that because the DEP is very understaffed, they haven't had the resources to do regular audits of these numbers. She further cites new research using DEP records where they found that the radioactivity in the fracking waste that's being produced over the last few years is actually much worse, much more radioactive than the DEP's earlier numbers. And regarding landfills, there are special alarms that are in use at the entrances to landfills that go off when the truckload exceeds a certain amount of radioactivity. In 2023, alarms at landfills in Pennsylvania went off more than 500 times because of oil and gas waste. Okay. Horrifying. At least 23 landfills accept oil and gas waste. Investigators found mounting evidence that this ever-increasing volume is harming the streams, creeks, and rivers where Pennsylvanians fish, swim, kayak, and source drinking water. Simply put, the pipeline would mean more fracked gas wells and would bring with it more poisoning of our air, soil, and water, more dire health consequences. I have a few questions. Where can the public find the results of an environmental impact study that addresses this component of the project? A follow-up to this question: has the DEP demonstrated this project will not degrade water quality? How is the DEP currently addressing this legacy of pollution? What procedures are in place or will be in place for the impending tremendous burden of additional toxic waste if this pipeline is built? DEP's mission includes a commitment to protect our air, land, and water resources and to provide for the health and safety of the state's residents. In keeping with your mission, I urge the DEP to deny this permit and work to repair the legacy of pollution rather than facilitate continued harm.
Jessica.
I look forward to receiving
Jessica.
the department's answers to these concerns. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Perfect timing, Jessica. All right, up next is Jay.
My name is Jay Ting Walker. I'm an organizer for Clean Air Council. The council is a nonprofit environmental health organization that has been working to protect everyone's right to breathe clean air for over 50 years. I'm here to comment on the pipeline. The council is most concerned about the health of local waterways that are designated as cold water fisheries, CWF, and also considered impaired by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection because of siltation caused by the erosion of soil. At 6 separate stream crossings, streams 6, 20, 67, 25, 28, 48, Homer City is proposing to use cement-modified backfill when refilling trenches dug for pipeline construction. Homer City's Chapter 102 permit application fails to address why this is necessary or even explain the exact makeup of cement-modified backfill. Homer City's permit application merely says that trenches will be backfilled with, and I quote, suitable material. Cement-modified soil is a mixture of soil, water, and cement. DEP should require Homer City to detail the exact mix used by Homer City and additionally require Homer City to detail where this mixing will occur in its erosion and sedimentation control plan. Cement-modified soil is generally used in the construction of buildings, parking lots, and roadways. Homer City should be required to detail previous use of cement-modified backfill in pipeline construction and specifically provide images of construction projects along or crossing waterways where cement-modified soil was used. Cement-modified soils are not usually used in pervious areas such as stream embankments. It is very possible that cement-modified backfill will create impervious surfaces in forested areas along streams, degrading natural areas. Regarding the crossing of Stream 67, cement-modified backfill is also properly directly adjacent to wetland 36A and Stream 66. It appears likely that cement could erode into this wetland and stream, potentially destroying it. Cement-modified backfill was also proposed directly on the bank of Stream 25, creating the additional risk that cement could erode directly into this stream. Cement-modified backfill is additionally proposed on both sides of Stream 48, increasing the risk that cement could erode into this body of water and further contaminate it. Stream 48 is also considered, quote, intermittent, meaning that its flow changes depending on groundwater levels and precipitation. This particularly sensitive body of water deserves additional protections from DEP, not cement on both sides. Considering the potential environmental damage caused by the use of cement-modified backfill, it's concerning that this project is supported by a $5 million Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program, RACP grant awarded by the Pennsylvania Office of the Budget. This drilling method is recognized as one that leads to what's known as, quote, inadvertent returns. Just last year, pipeline company Mark West lost over 1 million gallons of drilling fluid underground while using this method to construct a new pipeline in Washington County with no accountability. In sum, DEP should not issue the proposed permit as written due to major technical and legal deficiencies. At minimum, DEP should require Homer City to explain its use of, quote, cement-modified backfill and provide examples of its use in pipeline construction, particularly at stream crossings and adjacent to wetlands. In addition, Pennsylvania should not be spending public money to lock Indiana County into decades of additional fossil fuel pollution. Residents deserve better. They should not be asked to absorb health risks and environmental damage while corporations benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Tamara Whited.
I'm a 31-year resident of Indiana. Thank you for this opportunity. The proposed 5.8-mile pipeline set to connect the Texas Eastern Pipeline to the Homer City Power Plant will serve as the final link in the chain, as it were, to deliver fracked natural gas to the plant for the generation of electricity. I will focus my comment today on arguably the largest consequence of application approval, and that is the contribution to climate change of a projected 4.5 gigawatt power plant burning what is mostly methane. I will consider only the combustion of that natural gas and not the inevitable leakage of methane. The public was duly informed last year that this will constitute the largest natural gas power plant in the country. Although the South Mon Energy Facility might end up rivaling that. We seem to have a bit of intrastate one-upmanship going on. That aside, the plan approval for the new generating station issued by DEP has a maximum allowable CO2 limit of about 17.5 million tons per year. For sake of comparison, this amount is equivalent to emissions from the exhaust of some 150,000 gas-powered vehicles driving continuously at 30 miles per hour using standard EPA measures for exhaust. And that's traffic of a major metro area during rush hour, every hour. These projected emissions will largely exceed the peak emissions from the coal-fired power plant at Homer City during the late 1990s and early 2000s. CO2 emissions for those years totaling between 13 and 14 million tons per year. In short, this new power plant will not be cleaner than coal when it comes to the molecule that will be most decisive for our common future. Pennsylvania consistently ranks fourth among the 50 states for CO2 emissions. On a per capita basis, it is arguably worse if one considers only the more populous states in this calculation. I'm leaving the smaller or the less populated states like Wyoming and North Dakota because they're off the charts for per capita. But from this perspective, only Texas makes a higher per capita contribution to carbon pollution than we do. A great deal of past permitting has enabled these facts, including some permitting in the past several decades when we can say that, yes, we knew better. The per capita analysis is very important because the people of this Commonwealth are asked to contribute disproportionately to carbon pollution. These plants creating even more fossil fuel path dependency are being planned in our name to impact future generations catastrophically. As a citizen of the Commonwealth, I find this unconscionable. So where is the carbon capture and storage technology that should be mandated for this project? That is my first question to you today. Leading into my second question, let us consider the threats and the costs to Pennsylvanians now and in the years to come. We've already seen an uptick in heat-related injuries and school closures since many schools in Pennsylvania do not have air conditioning. DEP's own publication, Pennsylvania Climate Impact Assessment 2024, cites a myriad of impacts if we continue with the business-as-usual scenario, from the effects I've just cited to heat stroke, to increased rates of tick-borne illnesses, to increased rates of miscarriage and preterm births, and so many more. And all of this in a Pennsylvania projected to be 5.9 degrees Fahrenheit warmer by mid-century than the 1971 to 2000 baseline. That is DEP's projection. What will it cost us in dollars and cents? According to the Center for Climate Integrity, Pennsylvania's municipalities alone, not the state, will be shelling out some $15.47 billion in mitigation projects by 2040. Given all of this, how exactly does approval of this pipeline align with the Constitution of the Commonwealth? DEP knows I am referring to Article 1, Section 27, passed by a supermajority of voters in the early 1970s, which guarantees specific environmental rights to Pennsylvanians now and in the future. DEP is the functional trustee here. I might also mention our state's climate action plan, which ought to be binding on permitting decisions. My ask today is that you deny the permit application under review with the understanding that the power plant project simply does not represent the best available technology to produce electricity for the real needs of people, and that the only worthwhile race we are woefully behind in this Commonwealth is the race to build out renewable energy infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Eckenrode is next, but let me call a few people to get lined up, please. So after Kathy, we have Jane Kaminsky, then Amanda Oakes, Lee Hendricks, and then Garnet Freiling and Schaefer Freiling Douglas. Go ahead.
Okay. Hello, my name is Kathy. I would like to thank DEP for having this meeting and also the management here at Indiana Theater. The 4.5 gigawatt gas power plant in the AI data center campus proposed by Homer City Redevelopment poses significant environmental risk, public health, and socioeconomic impacts for the resident of Homer City and Indiana County, Pennsylvania residents. Some of the proponents of this project allege it promises economic benefits. The data center will be the largest in the country. Excuse me, I have a cold. However, the negatives appear to outweigh any of the positives this project could ever offer the community. I want to read to you Article 1, Section 27 of the Pennsylvania Constitution. The people have a right to clean air, pure water, and the preservation of natural, scenic, historic, aesthetic values of the environment. Pennsylvania's public natural resources are the common property of all the people, including generations yet to come. As trustees of these resources, the Commonwealth shall conserve and maintain them for the benefit of all people. That's Pennsylvania Constitution, Article 1, Section 27. Please remember these words throughout this meeting. The pipeline is 5.8 miles and will support a 4.5 gigawatt gas-fired plant, as I stated, that is being built to support the biggest AI data center in the U.S. to the tune of $10 billion. The pipeline project will transgress over multiple streams, wetlands, tributaries, and road crossings. The quality and noise levels during this construction will be compromised. A comprehensive impact study was not done. This pipeline is in direct violation of the Pennsylvania Constitution, and for that reason, the pipeline permit should be dismissed. There is significant environmental injustices with this whole permit project. The environmental justice mandates that all people, regardless of race or income, are entitled to the same degree of protections from environmental hazards. The Homer City project violates these principles. There has been little to no community engagement from DEP until this meeting. DEP has failed to follow its very own environmental justice policies. DEP has fast-tracked the permits for this project. There has been inadequate outreach to the residents who will bear the burden of the poor quality and air quality, water pollution, and the health problems into the future. The gas plant is expected to release hundreds of tons of pollutants and fine particulate matter, including toxic ammonia. These chemicals and pollutants are known to cause respiratory problems, cancer, and heart disease. These pollutants and toxins will be concentrated into an already public health disadvantaged rural community, still recovering from the health effects of pre-existing coal mines and coal-fired power plant. Has DEP done a comprehensive air quality and public health study? The Pennsylvania Environmental Rights Amendment guarantees the right to clean air and pure water for current and all future generations. The residents need to be assured of having a clean, continuous water supply into the future, keeping their rates the same, and they need to be assured that they have clean water throughout a drought. Has DEP done a comprehensive impact water study? Residents have the right to know where Homer City redevelopment and the investors are planning on getting all the water from this magnitude of a project. There has been claims made that the data center will be cleaner than the old coal-fired power plant. However, it will still result in massive amounts of emissions and pollutions. This was a really big eye-opener in my research. The gas plant is expected to produce 17 million tons of carbon dioxide, that's CO2, per year. This is an unprecedented amount of greenhouse gas emissions, and it's going to happen right here in Indiana County. Has DEP done a comprehensive impact study on the release of this greenhouse gas emission?
Ms. Eckenrode, I'm sorry, your time is up, but I will take your testimony.
How will this affect public health on the residents? I'm going to quickly conclude this, but I have a lot of questions on the water situation. Has an impact study been done on where all of this water is going to come for this project?
Ms. Eckenrode, we need to have time for everyone.
In conclusion, since I have 1 minute left, even if something appears to be legal, it can still be the wrong thing to do. The Homer City Data Center project will reverse the progress that has been...
Ms. Eckenrode, everyone has signed up for 5 minutes. I'm not trying to be rude, but I can take your testimony and it will have as much weight as your verbal testimony, okay? I'm sorry, but I want to make sure everyone gets their chance. Thank you. All right, next up is Jane Kaminsky, please.
My name is Jane Kaminsky, first name spelled Jane, last name Kaminski. I oppose this permit. I live and work in Indiana County, where I am a full-time farmer. Our farmland is in the Blacklick Creek watershed. In fact, our land abuts Blacklick Creek, and we take great care to farm in ways that protect our natural resources. I am deeply concerned that the Homer City Power Plant pipeline, the fracked gas power plant, and proposed AI data center are threatening environmental and human health in our community. As a farmer, I depend on healthy water, soil, and air to grow healthy food. And as a resident, I've had higher hopes for the future of Indiana County than continuing our legacy of land and water degradation. This project has taken me by surprise, seeming to come out of nowhere. Where and when was the community process? And if there really was one, can it be said that it truly and meaningfully engaged residents? The Homer City development has made no real effort to engage us in their project, accept our input, or build trust. We deserve to know how this pipeline came to be proposed and all of the impacts it could have. We deserve transparency. As a farmer, I strive to do right by the land and water resources I utilize, but I realize my efforts are meaningless when compared to the scale of potential disturbance and destruction resulting from projects just like this one. We've all seen the generations-old orange water in Blacklick Creek. There's a lot of positive work being done on a meaningful scale to remedy that problem. So why would we allow a project to go forward that could potentially set back these water restoration efforts by years and directly recontaminate the very same water we have been working so hard to improve? Why would we potentially exacerbate the pollution of our watershed by piling on more environmental problems? I believe that any further damage to our watershed and ecosystem is inexcusable. My questions are, what plans are in place to restore disturbed waterways, plant and animal habitats? Has current water usage by residents, farms, and recreationalists been thoroughly analyzed to understand the scope and importance of water quality in our area and the effect that this pipeline will have on our water use now and decades in the future? And lastly, how are you going to protect us? Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Amanda Oakes, then Lee Hendricks, Garnet Freiling, and Schaefer Freiling Douglas.
Hi, I'm Amanda. I've lived in Indiana County most of my life. I moved to Homer City in 2020 when the coal plant was operating at about 20% capacity. We all knew its closure was inevitable. I came here to be closer to Indiana, to build a life with my family around a community I was already part of, and to support my child with profound special needs. Over the years, I've grown to love Homer City, the people, the organizations, the small businesses. I'm an active member of my community. I'm involved in the arts, organize mutual aid, host open mics right here in this theater. I also sit on the Homer Center's Public Library Board and volunteer there regularly. As I said, I love where I live. When Homer City redevelopment demolished the smokestacks last year, residents were informed only days beforehand, and I'm still in disbelief of what I witnessed that day. Just a week or two later, the new project was announced as though it were already a done deal with no community input. Since then, our community has tolerated constant demolition blasts echoing across the entire region while receiving almost no meaningful outreach. Since this project was announced, many of us have been learning about the environmental and health impacts, worrying about our water supply, and questioning what this means for the future values of our homes. It is not lost on me that our school district has struggled since the coal plant closed, but now we are being forced to accept the largest frack gas power plant in Pennsylvania being built in our backyards to power AI that will eventually be used to surveil and take our jobs. Are we just expected to live with that, to live, work, and raise our children in the shadow of what could be, again, become the largest polluter in the state? The proposed pipeline will disturb more than 100 acres of land near over 100 households along a 6-mile stretch. How many of those families rely on well water? The proposed line crosses dozens of streams that feed into Blacklick Creek. People in our community have spent years volunteering to clean up the damage left by the coal industry, and they're still doing it. Are we really going to risk further polluting these waterways? What is happening here feels like another chapter in a long history of extraction and exploitation. Our air, our water, our land, and our communities have carried the burden of industrial pollution for generations. Families have already paid the price with their health. At the same time, we are watching tech companies aggressively expand AI infrastructure nationwide while openly discussing AI's role in warfare and surveillance. We've watched our elected officials support fast-track permitting for these massive AI data center projects. Across party lines, politicians at every level of government continue to fall in line with big tech and big oil, while the people most affected are ignored. My questions are, what steps will be taken to make sure our streams and private water supplies are protected from future harm? Will there be ongoing monitoring of well water and waterways after the pipeline construction is finished? Do we have enough available water to support the entire proposed project? Who exactly will benefit from this project? I'm not convinced Homer City will. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, up next is Lee Hendricks.
Hi, my name is Lee Hendricks. That's Leighendrix, and I live in Indiana County. And I am here today to speak against this project because I care deeply about my neighbors and this community's health and the health of the land, air, and water where we make our home. And I'm hearing a lot of people do too, and saying a lot of the things that I'm concerned about. This pipeline, along with the fracked gas power plant and its promised data center that this pipeline will serve, puts our home at risk. It puts the well-being of our land and air and water at risk, and that puts us, the people who live here, at risk. I am here to speak about the permit for this pipeline because I am deeply concerned about the lack of transparency and the fast tracking of permitting related to these massive projects. The speed of the process and the piecemeal nature of permitting helps elide the cumulative impacts on our community. It makes it hard for us to get accurate information. This pipeline in itself is an example of that. It will cross dozens of tributaries, not just one stream. So we cannot separate things out as if the disturbances created by building the pipeline can be readily contained and will not contribute to existing degradation of the watershed. My question, has the DEP required a cumulative impact analysis across all stream crossings? The cumulative watershed impacts have to be considered when making these permitting decisions. And I see this as a problem for all aspects of Homer City redevelopment's fracked gas power plant and proposed data center. Everything moving so quickly and quietly behind the scenes in order to push these projects forward with as little input from the people of this community as possible. It serves industry and development when things move quickly and with little transparency. And I am glad we are able to offer public comment today. I'm glad to be hearing from other people today. And I am also frustrated with how many barriers are created that prevent everyday people from having real information and opportunities to shape what is happening in our communities. Because we live here, and the cumulative impacts of this massive project and the pipeline built to serve it will have real effects on our quality of life, as we've heard a lot already. Like the pipeline, it is not honest or accurate to present the power plant and data center as if they are separate from the history of this land that has already experienced decades of extractive development that has had profound environmental and health impacts. We know that. And this is an extension of that. We do not need this pipeline to further risk this vulnerable watershed, and we do not need this new power plant and data center project that builds on old harm at our community's expense. And so I ask that the DEP deny this permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, up next, Garnet Freiling and Schaefer Freiling Douglas. Could I have, excuse me if I pronounce this wrong, Jenica Garreau next, and then Colleen Donovan, Sally Simpson, and Sarah King, please. All right, you all can go ahead.
Hello, my name is Garnet, and this is my son Schaefer. I'm very grateful for everyone's time and attention here today. I grew up in Indiana County, and now I live here with my son and my husband and my daughter. From what I understand, this project and the power plant that it supports will bring a significant risk of dangerous pollutants being released into the surrounding water and air. I believe it's a childhood right to play in the creek. That's Western PA speak for creek. I need to know if the water that my children are playing in is safe. How will the local populations know if there's a concern? Is there a system in place to alert residents in case of any dangerous air or water conditions? Our waterways are unique in that they have been already polluted from past mining industry. Have the unique properties of our waterways been studied to ensure that new contaminants mixing with existing chemical residues will not have any harmful impacts? I'm also concerned that any drought modeling will not account for our unique environmental conditions. Finally, assuming that protections are put in place, what will the consequences be for violating guidelines? We have already seen that businesses in this industry are ignoring regulations and paying slap-on-the-wrist fines if they're punished at all. Will the consequences actually be meaningful enough to fully discourage practices that we know harm the water, land, and people of this region? My son would like to say something too.
Please don't mess with the water.
make money another way. Please don't cut down our trees. We need water for us to drink and the animals. And we also need a treat for animals.
So he said, don't mess with the water, make money another way. Please don't cut down any trees. We need clean water for drinking and for the animals. The animals need the trees.
Thank you both. Jenica?
Thank you, and I apologize. I'm pregnant, and that was very emotional, so I'm a little tearful. My name is Jenica Giroux. That's Jennica Girous. I live in Indiana County. I was born and raised in Indiana, but moved out of state after attending University of Pittsburgh from 2006 to 2010. I moved back to Indiana in 2017, bringing my husband with me, and shortly after, we started our family and focused our energies on putting down roots in our community. I am co-owner of Mother Earth Farm, PA, located here in Indiana, along one of the headwaters of Cherry Run. A huge selling point to convince my Florida native husband to move to Western Pennsylvania was the opportunity to start a small-scale farm and raise our children immersed in the natural beauty that this county has to offer. We built our home on our farm in 2020 and watched the smokestacks of the Homer City generating station implode in 2025 from our back porch. I'm here to speak about the permit for this pipeline because I'm concerned about the public health and other downstream population impacts this project will have on our community. Pipeline drilling in our region can often pollute streams and well water, both of which are of paramount concern for my farm and my family's health. My children play not just in the stream on our farm, but enjoy many of the streams throughout the county. In addition, my family relies on well water for our home and for our livestock, which we raise. How will the DEP ensure that streams and private drinking water supplies are not impacted by inadvertent returns during horizontal directional drilling? In addition to water pollution, I have concerns about pollution from the plant and how that may impact the prevalence of cancer for residents in our community. While I recognize we are gathered tonight to specifically address the pipeline, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention that my concerns about pollution in our streams and air apply to the broader aspects of the Homer City redevelopment power plant and proposed data center. Furthermore, while the pollution concerns I have can easily be tied directly to impacts of this proposed pipeline, I have concerns about what this pipeline and larger redevelopment project will mean for our community from a social standpoint. As I mentioned, I moved back to Indiana County after living out of state for nearly a decade. I lived in major metropolitan areas from Ohio to Florida during that time. Moving back to rural Indiana County was a decision that shocked a lot of my peers from these metropolitan areas. And I know I am not the only individual in this community who had left and decided to return to start a family and small business here. That speaks to the appeal that Indiana County has to offer. My fear is that other young individuals, after recognizing the negative impact on the environment this pipeline and larger redevelopment project will have, will decide that Indiana County is no longer a community they would like to return to. Without young folks wanting to set roots down in this community and grow families and businesses, this community will lose its appeal and will forever be changed. Please deny this permit to ensure that our vulnerable watershed is not further harmed by this pipeline and to ensure our residents can continue to enjoy the natural beauty Indiana County has to offer without the fear of polluted water and increased cancer rates. Please deny this permit to ensure that Indiana County continues to be a place that draws individuals and families to lay down their roots. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, after Colleen, can I have Sally Simpson line up, please? Sarah King, Kat Marquez, Kurt Limbach, Linda Santos, please. And then go ahead, Colleen, please.
Hello, my name is Colleen Donovan. That's COLLEEN-DONOVAN. I live in Indiana, and I'm a member of Ken Sink Trout Unlimited. I'm also a volunteer with PASEC, or Pennsylvania Senior Environmental Corps. As we know, the history of coal mining in Appalachia shows us that corporations do not always clean up their messes. Many of our streams in Indiana County run orange. Refuse piles left behind by coal companies long gone dot the landscape. It often takes people from the community, such as the Black Lick Creek Watershed Association, among others, to lead in the cleanup. Just last week, with Friends of the Parks, I toured the Black Lick Creek Treatment Facility, an abandoned mine drainage treatment plant near Vintondale. Funded by a combination of state and federal funds, it cost over $27 million to construct and will cost about $600,000 a year to operate. On my part, I observed orange murky water going in, but clean water coming out into the Black Lick Creek below. Many more of these treatment plants have yet to be built. This is certain to result in greater economic benefits downstream. But is it meant to last? New threats downstream have become apparent, and so we are here to discuss the construction permit for the pipeline intended to bring natural gas to the Homer City site from one of the Mariner East pipelines further south. According to the DEP's website, the Homer City power generation will become the largest natural gas-powered plant in the country. A fossil fuel burning facility of this size is certain to threaten the environment. All of this to power a data center. And this is happening nationwide. Nearly 3,000 new data centers are either under construction or in the planning stages, driven by high demand for AI infrastructure. Why so many? Who's going to clean up after the tech companies when this bubble is over? Pipeline construction is problematic. According to an October 2021 article in the Tribune Review, drilling spills in the construction of the Mariner East pipeline ruined wells and polluted streams. And because of leaks and lost drilling fluids, construction resulted in the damage to streams and water supplies. One contractor had 48 criminal violations of the Clean Streams Law. Will it be different this time? I doubt it. According to Three Rivers Waterkeeper, the proposed pipeline will include at least 21 stream crossings, including Black Lick Creek and its tributaries, and multiple wetland crossings. What sort of oversight can we expect? Does the DEP have the resources to observe, review, and enforce the requirements of the permit? What about the people who live within a 2,000-foot buffer area? How are their wells going to be protected? What entity will be responsible if they lose their water? I propose that the DEP delay this permit until these questions can be addressed. Most people would agree that caution is the best policy. However, instead of caution, some want to accelerate the permitting process. According to Senator Dave McCormick's website, he has introduced a bill that streamlines the federal permitting process in order to speed up construction. In addition, according to the May 7th article in the Tribune Review, Senator McCormick defended the Homer City data center, stating that the threats to the environment will not happen. Not so fast, Senator. Recent research has shown that fracking wastewater is more radioactive than previously understood. How can the public expect transparency from entities that stand to gain financially from these projects? In sum, there is much unknown about these data centers. In Indiana County and all over the region, we know about the environmental effects of fossil fuel extraction. Local people will suffer the effects of the environmental damage, and they will be most likely responsible for the cleanup. The people who benefit from the Homer City Data Center live far from Indiana County. This is our community. I ask that the DEP delay or deny this permit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, up next, Sally Simpson, please.
Yes.
I'm Sally Simpson. I'm from Armstrong County, originally from Butler County. And I'm interested in this. I've been coming to the Crow meetings, and in Armstrong County, we are currently working on trying to get regulations so that there are no proposals in our county. I'm on the Planning Commission in the Ford City Borough, and we're really trying to push these regulations through because once a proposal happens, it's kind of too late. I grew up in rural western Pennsylvania my whole life. I grew up on a farm, and my grandpa died from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma after spreading weed killer on his land for years, and my other grandpa was a coal miner, black lung. So I guess my question is, when is it going to stop? When are we going to use quit using our poor rural communities just to suck out the fossil fuels and destroy people's lives? I mean, they come into our communities just like with the AI data centers, and they do this, and they just expect us to accept it, and there is no benefit whatsoever to the community itself. In 2021, the House in the state passed a bill that they're going to be sales tax exempt. So Pennsylvania is a great place for these data centers to come. And so you guys, the DEP, this is our last stop. Like we need you to not let this permit go through, because, and I know it's for the pipeline, but when I talked to Senator Pittman, because I've negotiated with him, talked with him, he accepts bribes. From Knighthead Capital, he accepted a donation of thousands of dollars. And this is his hometown, and he is willing to sell his own hometown out for this. So what does that say when our politicians are corrupt? And I'm hoping that your wheels aren't greased. I'm hoping that you guys can be the last stop to say that this is not going to happen here. I mean, I care about these guys like I do my own people. Like, they're my neighbors too. And it's important that we don't let this happen, because it's the environment, it's our community, and people die from this. And you don't realize it until you look back years later and you say, wow, we really shouldn't have done that. We should have put our foot down and not let that happen. So I guess that's my question. When are we going to quit doing this to our rural communities? Like, just because we're working class and we're poor, like, should we really accept this? Laying down?
Thank you. All right, can we have Sarah King line up, Kat Marquez, Kurt Limbach, Linda Santos, and Rebecca Myers, please? If none of those people are present, then we can go to... Oh, okay, go ahead. Sarah's next. Sarah King.
Yes.
Ready?
You.
Okay.
Yes, I'm Sarah King, and thank you for this hearing. I joined Tammy in appreciating your willingness to make this hearing possible. The Pennsylvania Climate Change Act of 2008, that's Act 70, requires the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection to develop and update a climate action plan, that's CAP. So CAP, here it comes, every 3 years. DEP also produces a greenhouse gas inventory annually. These documents make it absolutely clear that burning fossil fuels is the primary cause of climate change, that the impacts of climate change on both people and nature are already underway, and that the impacts will get far worse if we don't stop pouring greenhouse gas into the atmosphere now. According to the 2024 CAP, that CAP, that Climate Action Plan, we need to both adapt to what is already happening with regard to climate change now and to act to reduce climate change in the future. So based on the specific list of recommendations about how we must adapt to climate change in Pennsylvania that's found on page 186 of the 2024 DEP Climate Action Plan report, here are my questions, my first questions. Number one, in considering the permit for a 30-inch pipeline, has DEP included climate projections into the pipeline infrastructure and route design evaluation? And to put it another way, does DEP have specific projections and modeling regarding the impact of flooding and extreme temperature fluctuations on the pipeline? And how do these projections affect the pipeline evaluation, and the permit evaluation, I should say? And number two, in assessing potential risks to our clean water supply, has DEP conducted a climate risk analysis to determine how rising temperatures, increasing precipitation, and increasing frequency of extreme weather will affect our water resources? And number three, and again, I'm working from the list provided on page 182 in the Climate Action Plan in 2024. Does this pipeline design incorporate enhanced early warning systems in order to mitigate potential damages and costs associated with these extreme weather events? In addition to these specific questions, I wanted to make a comment about the overall approval process. And in doing so, I'd like to note that on page 48 of the 2024 Climate Action Plan, it states that to even partially address the devastation that will result from climate change in the next 20 to 75 years, we must be aware that, and I am quoting from page 48, strategies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from electricity generation offer the greatest potential for decarbonization through 2050. And again, from page 48, I'm quoting, nuclear, solar, onshore wind, and battery storage will need to produce nearly all the electricity generated in Pennsylvania by 2050. That's from the 2024 CAP. So how is it possible, in the context of these fact-based conclusions, that DEP could even entertain approval of the Homer City redevelopment plan that calls for massive increased use of fossil fuels to generate electricity? The answer to that question appears to be piecemealing. There is no plan to approve the whole plan, but with piecemealing, little parts of the plan are approved one at a time, at the local level and at the state level, and no one attends to the impact of the whole, the effect of the whole. This is how catastrophes happen. Historian Raoul Hilberg documented that the fact that one of the greatest human catastrophes of the 20th century was made possible in part because in nearly every European country, one by one, local train officials and staff made sure to provide enough train cars, enough staffing, local staffing. They generally handled all the logistics so that the Nazis got the transportation they needed to deport people from all across Europe to their deaths. Bit by bit, catastrophes happen. Bit by bit, we lost nearly every tree in Pennsylvania in the 19th and 20th century. We lost every passenger pigeon. We lost almost every bison, and we're losing pollinator populations right now, and many other environmental concerns are happening, or disasters are happening, bit by bit. DAP has documents and guidelines, and that would include the Climate Action Plan and the Greenhouse Gas Inventory, that both allow and promote an evaluation of the impact of the entire Homer City project, both its immediate impact and the impact on the future of the children in this room and in the state of Pennsylvania, as well as the country and the world.
Ms. King, I apologize, but your time is up.
One sentence.
One sentence, go really quick.
The
please.
impact of the entire project is calculable and must be part of this review process. In this way, we must act.
Thank you. All right, we have Kat Marquez and then Kurt Limbach.
Cool, yeah. My name is Kat Marquez, Katmarquez, the Civic Engagement Mobilizer for Penn Future, a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization advocating for community and environmental protection, especially that of clean air, clean water, and clean energy. Today, on behalf of Penn Future, I ask that the DEP denies the development of the pipeline. The people have a right to clean air, pure water, and to the preservation of the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic values of the environment. The Commonwealth shall conserve and maintain them for the benefit of all the people. Once again, as we've heard many times before, the state constitution should be the framework for what it means to protect the well-being of our communities and the environment. And with that in mind, we can see how the construction of the pipeline fails to align with what our government and elected leaders should be doing for their constituents. The DEP needs to recognize that this pipeline is going to cross 21 streams and multiple wetlands. This project alone is going to involve over 100 acres of earth disturbance, adding onto the already impacted waters due to the previous negative impacts. As is necessary, the DEP is obligated to protect the cold water fishery from the negative impacts of construction, including the prevention of sedimentation, thermal, and hydraulic impacts. Lastly, and most importantly, the pipeline is at least partly in the Black Lick watershed, which is already negatively impacted by acid mine drainage and agriculture. For reference, Black Lick Creek is one of the largest tributaries to the Conemaugh River, all formerly flowing with bright orange chemicals and void of aquatic life only 20 years ago. If it weren't for the communities and the volunteer advocacy they've done and continue to do, which again I am very in awe of, it would not be clear flowing as it is today. Pipeline construction and trenching risk opening up new pathways for acid mine drainage to find a way into other streams and groundwater. We should all strive to add to the positive impacts from our communities, not the negative ones caused by industry. To uphold our already established state constitution, the Department of Environmental Protection needs to stand by the people of Homer City and Indiana County and the surrounding areas who have lived here for generations and deny the development of this pipeline from continuing. This is one part of the larger picture, which only becomes more important as we continue to strive for a cleaner, better world for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Limbach?
Hello, my name is Kurt Limbaugh, K-U-R-T-L-I-M-B-A-C-H. I'm a citizen of Fairfield Township, Westmoreland County. My land goes right down to the Conemaugh River. I have 9 miles, my farm's 9 miles downwind from the proposed Homer City abomination. Now, I want to speak first about lack of transparency about this whole thing. We have this thing called a Homer City Redevelopment Corporation, but it's actually several billionaires out of Manhattan named Knighthead Capital. That's who this is for. I want to ask the DEP, my first question, why do out-of-state billionaires get concierge service to push their permits through quickly? Now, this is be the most massive air pollution source in all of Western Pennsylvania ever created. The DEP only allowed one air permit hearing for the public. That's hardly transparency. And in that air permit hearing, I asked the DEP's health officer what would be the health impacts, because every fossil fuel plant of any type has so many deaths a year caused by it, premature deaths, so many cancers, cases of asthma, emphysema, etc. The DEP health officer testified there'd be zero health impacts from a 4.5 gigawatt power plant burning fossil fuel. She failed to mention to the public that was based on the high levels of pollution as a zero ground level for the old Homer City plant. So basically she was just saying it'll have the same amount of deaths and sickness and asthma from one of the most polluting coal power plants in the world. So I want the DEP to quantify that for me and tell me how many extra deaths a year in the region we should expect, how many extra cancers, how much extra emphysema, and how much, because this is going to provide permanently 50 jobs at a data center, which is a lot for a data center. Typically they're 10, 15, or 20 people. It's also going to drive our energy prices through the roof. So I was also told by the DEP not to communicate with the health officer anymore. And he accused me of being a member of the Fourth Estate. I have never, ever, or been now or in the future a member of the Fourth Estate. I'm not a reporter for any news organization. And their failure to communicate with me shows lack of transparency answering my questions. We're going to have massive air pollution. Even the developer says it's only 70% as bad as per gigawatt as the old Homer City plant. But it's 2.5 times the size. So it's 50% more air pollution than the old Homer City plant, which was a killer for the region. And throughout the documents, the DEP keeps referring to this as a modification of an existing facility. The old facility was torn down. It burned coal. The new facility is not built. It burns fracked natural gas. That is hardly a modification of the existing facility. And then how does the old Homer City polluter that hurt our community for years get to sell pollution credits like it's somehow good stuff to the new polluter who's going to harm our community and give them a pass on nitrous oxides and VOCs? This is absurd. Again, I've watched these pipelines being built. I saw it in my community when they did fracking. and I saw plenty of inadvertent returns at every stream crossing, lack of monitoring by the DEP, lack of sedimentation and erosion controls. DEP enforces fracking and pipelines so poorly. In my community, they put a frack well within 50 feet of a blue line stream, so 100 feet. They had no waiver to do so. I called the DEP up. They said, Kurt, we'll just give them a waiver. It's a piece of paper called a waiver. I went to these other ones and looked at the waivers. There was no ENS controls. It was just a waiver for them. This is how it's done in Pennsylvania. I watched Exxon, XTO, turn the beautiful trout stream that goes through my property red, gray, yellow, and brown. So I want those questions answered. Liquid pipeline leaks can be horrible. And I want to see these health impacts actually quantified. And if you want to base them on the whole plant, do so. But tell me how many people that killed every year, so that's what we're going to expect again from this two plant. How many cancers, how much emphysema for our 50 jobs. And our energy prices going through the roof as they drive demand crazy for natural gas. And fracking, I saw it in my community. I watched it make people sick and lose their water. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Limbach. All right, up next we have Linda Santos, Rebecca Myers, Colleen O'Neill, and Damian Cordell.
Hi, my name is Linda Santos, and I'm a resident of Indiana County. There are those, like Knighthead Equity Firm, based out of Wall Street, multi-billionaire company, that will destroy the earth at any cost and call it progress. Pipelines contribute to global warming and physical disruptions to the environment. Beyond the leaks from construction and production alone emits millions of metric tons of CO2. Habitat disruption, deforestation, soil erosion, and sediment smother aquatic life. What you call natural gas, and there's nothing natural really about it, how it's sourced. Leaks occur at all stages, from valves and compressor stations to catastrophic failures, like the Nord Stream explosion, which released 500 tons of methane. Are we prepared for anything like that? Smog and fine particles leaking methane reacts with other chemicals and sunlight to form ground-level ozone layers that travels deep into our lungs, creating respiratory diseases. And there are those like us who live here and enjoy our woods, lakes, and streams. We are nature, and nature is more important than this pipeline. It takes 100 years for trees to mature. If you destroy this, we will never see trees again in our lifetime, and maybe even your children's. Tourism in PA is $1 billion business. Again, woods, lakes, streams, hunting, fishing, clean air, and water. Why would you want to destroy that? Why would any tourist, student, or new resident even want to come here and live next to a toxic pipeline, power plant, or AI data centers? For these are temporary. As soon as they, meaning Knighthead Equity Firm, finishes sucking up all our natural resources, they will leave us with a wasteland. It is time to turn the corner and stop polluting that is killing us with forever chemicals. I propose that you banish this permit and we create a moratorium to halt the harm, and that we create an ordinance to protect our beautiful land in PA. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca Myers, please.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Myers. I'm a resident in Indiana County and have lived here my entire life. I'm here to request that the DEP deny this proposal and show my opposition for the project as a whole. I greatly appreciate the DEP giving us time to make comments. Thank you for allowing us to be here. The fast-tracking of the Homer City Redevelopment Group's project has felt like guerrilla warfare against my community. It has only been a little over 1 year since HCR announced that they would be building an energy campus for the purpose of powering data centers with practically no time in between the announcement and construction for people to ask questions, show our approval and disapproval, or even get a shred of understanding of the massive scale of the project or what it imposes. To me, this feels like my town is being pillaged. When an opposing force invades us and violently takes our land, our resources, and harms our health for their personal gain, and does so in a manner that is so swift and quick and lacking transparency that it shocks citizens into submission before they can get their bearings and fight back. My community is still confused about the project and its purpose to host data centers. Many believe that the project is only a power plant and it is meant to provide local electricity to power our homes. Many people are unaware of the size of the project and that other data centers which are being opposed in other communities actually pale in comparison to the massive 3,200 acre project that is HCR. Many people are unaware that the owners of Homer City Redevelopment Group are not Indiana County residents and that the project is actually owned by a New York hedge fund. Furthermore, I was told by someone who lives within the area of the proposed pipeline that they were never notified by Homer City Redevelopment or the DEP that a proposed pipeline would be going directly through their backyard. Is that statement true? Has the HCR and or the DEP sent individual notices to the residents that would be most affected by the pipeline and stormwater drainage and sediment? If not, I humbly request that another hearing be issued because adequate notice has not been given to those who are most affected to prepare comments. I am also here as a patron of the Ghost Town Trail and would like to talk about how degrading the Black Lick watershed will affect patrons like me and the area of Indiana County as a whole. This region has been plagued by pollution my entire life. Growing up, I was taught not to swim in the bright orange streams that were polluted with acid mine drainage or even to walk through them, which discouraged me and many others from going outside, recreating, and exercising. Luckily, Indiana County has seen significant gains in reversing this pollution and turning the abandoned infrastructure of the coal industry into a treasure of nature-based recreation like the Ghost Town Trail. An eerie parallel exists between the towns around Black Lick watershed that border the Ghost Town Trail and the proposed pipeline and power plant project that is happening today in Homer City. The name Ghost Town Trail should be evidence enough that this community has not only been plagued by the pollution of the previous coal mines, but it has also been plagued by get-rich-quick schemes that ended in the abandonment of entire towns. In 1901, $1 million was invested in Wareham, a town in the Black Lick watershed, to build a school, hospital, police station, jail, and 250 houses to sustain the coal rush. However, in less than 30 years, the mines were closed and the town was abandoned. Now, 100 years later, we are still dealing with the consequences of that coal rush today and a new false investment opportunity that could devastate us and leave abandoned infrastructure with no repayment to the citizens who sacrificed their land and resources for another 100 years. The Ghost Town Trail is peppered with educational signs and posters about the history of the trail and the pollution that has occurred in the Black Lake watershed. A survey was conducted about the amount of use of the Ghost Town Trail gets, and it was estimated that there were over 77,000 visits in 1 year. That is 77,000 events of witnesses to the trail and its history of pollution and revitalization. Along the trail, patrons can also see the massive Black Lick Creek treatment plant and be inspired and forewarned about the devastation that unhinged business practices leave behind. Black Lick Creek has been on the DEP's impaired water list since its inception in 2006 as mine drainage caused unbalanced pH and high levels of iron, aluminum, and manganese. How will additional sediment not make an already degraded watershed worse? The Black Lick watershed is an area of tourism, and members of my county both enjoy the Ghost Town Trail and the Black Lick Valley Natural Area. This needs to be taken into account and included in the application.
Rebecca, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Thank you.
I can accept your written testimony, okay? Thank you. All right. Colleen O'Neill, Damian Cordell, Bailey Nace, and then Darcy Trunzo, please.
My name is Colleen O'Neill, and I am providing this comment on behalf of the Mountain Watershed Association. First, I will state that our organization believes it is irresponsible to invest taxpayer dollars into infrastructure and permitting for data center development for artificial intelligence, especially when residents are experiencing an unprecedented affordability crisis. This pipeline project alone has received $5 million in taxpayer money. That said, I will focus my comment on tangible actions that I believe the DEP must take to protect local communities and watersheds from Homer City Redevelopment's proposed pipeline project. To construct this pipeline, the applicant has proposed using horizontal directional drilling, or HDD, which is a trenchless pipeline installation method, often required when a pipeline passes through sensitive areas such as streams like Blacklick Creek. In our region, HDD for pipeline construction has historically resulted in inadvertent returns, where drilling fluid escapes from the borehole into the surrounding environment, which can pollute nearby streams and drinking water wells. When drilling fluid enters nearby waterways, it can significantly impact macroinvertebrate populations by increasing sedimentation, which in turn impacts fish populations. When drilling fluid enters a nearby drinking water well, it can cause cloudy, undrinkable water that often requires costly treatment. For instance, the construction of the Mariner East Pipeline in northern Westmoreland County in 2017 resulted in 17 spills of an estimated 200,002 gallons of drilling fluid into various streams. Local private water supplies were also impacted. As a result of advocacy efforts by organizations such as Mountain Watershed Association, DEP has established extensive technical guidance for HDD used for pipeline development in the Commonwealth. First, DEP should require that Homer City redevelopment strictly adhere to this technical guidance if the Homer City pipeline is permitted. Second, DEP should require the applicant to conduct baseline water testing for all private drinking water supplies located within 2,000 feet of proposed HDD locations for pipeline construction. In addition, DEP should require that the applicant notify all residents within 2,000 feet when HDD is anticipated and provide all residents with temporary water sources on the days when HDD will occur. This is because one of the best ways to prevent impacts to private water supplies is by not using them when HDD is occurring, since well pumps can pull and misdirect drilling fluid into nearby wells. These measurements are paramount for protecting nearby residents and watersheds. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you. Damian Cordell, please.
Hi, my name is Damian Cordell, and I am on the Board of Directors of Kensing Charter Limited. The Kensing Charter Limited mission is to conserve, protect, and restore the cold water fisheries in and around Indiana County. With that mission statement in mind, there is a concern that the disturbance of the 101.8 acres of earth within the watershed designated cold water fisheries, with having at least that many crossings, has a good possibility that these cold water fisheries will be adversely affected if not properly, if the proper environmental protective measures are not followed and or not enforced. DEP must require enhanced protective environmental measures beyond the minimum technology standards, as well as overseeing and enforcing all environmental requirements of this construction project in order to ensure that the quality of the impacted streams remains intact. In short, I'm just asking DEP to do due diligence, do their job, and please oversee this project so that the contractors are not doing what they want to do, what we really want to see done. Kensing Charter Limited has been a part of many CWF stream improvement and maintenance projects in this area. We are very vested in the results of this pipeline project so that sufficient water quality is maintained in the area of the pipeline and in the surrounding community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is Bailey Nace or Darcy Trunzo here? Okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Darcy Trunzo. I was born in Johnstown, raised in Homer City, in a 3-room house about a quarter mile from the power plant, close enough to Neal Road that I could smell the farm. Last year, in March, I was probably one of the first people to hitch the ride on this data center issue. I have worked in media back and forth for many years, and I come home like many Gen Xers to check in on my family who still lives here. My dad was a coal miner, a longwall operator, and he managed to actually not have black lung like my grandparents because he ended up with union protections that protected his lungs, and he was able to take care of himself until the mines closed. My father himself raced bicycles for many years, and he had noted that the environment over the years after his mine closed had improved. He could fish, he could do all sorts of things. When I was a kid, I was a wheezer. I was an asthmatic. We grew up close enough to the power plant that my mother used to complain that if she didn't take her sheets in off the line, by morning they would be black. This is a story we all know. Same with being orange up to your knees if you made it in the creek and tried to lie to your mother about it. We all know. But last year, someone reached out to me who is a farm stakeholder and said, does anyone know of an environmental attorney who can help file an injunction? And I was like, what's this about? They want to blast the power plant. They want to level it. Apparently, they want to bring in a data center. Now, I'm standing here looking at you. The DEP is no stranger to Indiana County. They've been in a long-standing fight with Grant Township. They've dealt with issues in the region because of frack brine. You know, after Halliburton left, they tried to come back and reinvest themselves in the well pads and dump what they were fracking in other places. The reason I'm asking for this whole business to stop is because none of these permits were done in good faith. We had very little time to respond, days actually. I was actually out of town. I was in New York City when I got the information, and I got on the phone. I got on the phone with the watershed organizations, every single one of them. I got on the phone with Three Rivers waterkeepers. I got on the phone with the people who sued the pants off the power plant in the early 2000s. This is not a new game for Homer City. And when we called and tried to get FOIAs from the DEP about whether or not there was asbestos in the atmosphere, the claims were that there was no asbestos from those stacks. I don't think any of this process was in good faith. One of the key stakeholders in Homer City redevelopment is Robin Gorman. One of the things that I know for a fact about Robin Gorman is that she is notorious for defying rules when it comes to the Sunshine Act. I know this because I was involved in a public process where she cut off my mic, and then she got reported for it, and she had to be retrained in the process of dealing with the Sunshine Act. This was during COVID. So what I'm saying is, we have a long-standing legacy of environmental problems in this community where people in poverty are left without key information that they need to make decisions. The fast tracking of this permit was done purely because people have power and money. There's also a tourniquet on the media in this community. At the time, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette wasn't coming here to report on this stuff because they were in one of the longest standing labor disputes in the country. I don't think any of this is an accident. I think all of this was set up to prevent the local people from being able to have the time to be able to investigate what was happening in their community. The $5 million that are going into this pipeline, the local community wasn't able to access the process because the meetings that were being had within the county, I know, are very difficult to access. Also, the meetings that were had last year that dealt with the DEP and dealt with QIT and dealt with Homer City redevelopment were done in a way that was not in good faith with the community. They were not given adequate time to report. And even when people were filing Freedom of Information Act requests, they aren't getting information that's accurate. A lot of it is redacted, whether it comes from the county or whether it comes from you folks. And once again, the fights that are being had with the DEP are long-standing. I don't sincerely believe that any of this process has been in good faith. There are a ton of people here that can talk about the science of this region, and they've done an excellent job. And I know many of the people in this room.
Ms. Trunza, I'm sorry.
Sure.
But you can give me your testimony at the end, and it'll
I sure will.
carrying just as much weight.
But I will tell you right now, I do recommend that this permit be stopped because I don't believe that it deserved to be fast-tracked because I don't think any of it is in good faith.
Thank you. All right, last call for Bailey Nace. Bailey Nace. Bailey Nace. No Bailey Nace? Okay, then we have Larry Bradcock, I think it says. Braddock. And then we have Reed Luwig? Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm Larry Blaylock from your neighboring town of Johnstown, and have been involved in environmental struggles for half a century, and so have a sense of how these things go, and how corporate investors will say whatever it is they have to say, make all the promises they need to promise to get what they want, and then ignore it, walk away from it. A good example is whoever invested in the coal mines along the Ghost Town Trail, which I love to ride on. I spend a lot of time on the Ghost Town Trail and in the businesses and restaurants and things that are along the trail. And they spend, let's see where I was at with that, business. The past energy investments have left the community, leaving communities and taxpayers still to pay back a lifetime of harm that past investors have ignored. When the coal mine companies came in, they made their money and they walked away, as others mentioned, leaving communities harmed. Since then, it's been up to the taxpayers. They call that just, the investors walk away from the costly things that are going to need to be done to protect the environment in a project, and then in the end, the taxpayers are left to foot the bill. I have some photos that I took within the last 2 weeks on the Ghost Town Trail, and one of them is of a 3-foot wide, very slimy looking orange, 100-foot long stream, or part of a stream that comes out of the mountain and ends up in the Blacklick Creek. I have others, one of Armaw Run, that's orange coming off the hill into the river. There's another stream that I can't remember the name of that also runs in orange and crossed and into the river. And I just, I know from looking at that somebody along the line walked away from their responsibility. The taxpayers just spent a half mile downstream from Vintondale, spent $27 million, not 2.7 million, $27 million putting an acid mine drainage treatment plant in that became operable last year. The $27 million plant that's paid for by the taxpayers. That's Pennsylvania and federal taxpayers footing the bill for that. The plant itself costs $600,000 a year to maintain, and that again is paid for by taxpayers. So I really think and it's been said time and again, we need to have, I really think it's important that when a project this big and extensive is proposed, that money be set aside to hire professional environmental professionals with a background in projects similar to this, and that they go to bat for the community, and the community can trust them and understand them. I wouldn't understand the politicians in Harrisburg or in the Department of Environmental Protection based on previous experiences I had.
Well, thank you. And if you would like to give me your testimony before the end of the evening, I'll make sure you get my email address, okay?
Good, yep.
Thank you.
if anybody wants to see the photos of the gunk.
If you email me those also, I can share them with whoever. Yes, thank you. All right, Mr. Reed Lewig. I hope I didn't butcher that too bad.
No, that's all right. Good evening. What is there to say that hasn't been said? My name is Reed Ludwig. There you go. And although I am not a resident currently living in Westmont, I am a concerned community member. I grew up in Sword and New Florence, creating friendships here. Much of my family live here. I attended IUP. I hunt and fish here and consume what I harvest. My father worked the entirety of his adult life at the Homer City Generating Station. I'm here tonight because I believe our community deserves transparency, accountability, and protection before projects of this scale move forward. This hearing is not just about a permit number. It is about the future of our water, our air, our land, and the people who call this region home. We are being asked to accept a 5.8-mile gas pipeline tied to a massive gas-fired power plant intended to support AI data centers and potentially other large industrial operations. Yet, many residents still feel like we are being kept in the dark about the full long-term impacts of this project could have on Indiana County and surrounding communities. Projects like this do not exist in isolation. They affect streams, wetlands, stormwater systems, air quality, traffic, noise, infrastructure, energy demand, and the cost of living for working families. Once damage is done to waterways like Muddy Run and Blacklick Creek, it cannot simply be undone with a press release or a corporate promise. And that is exactly why transparency matters. People should not have to dig through technical filings or hear rumors to understand what is happening in their own backyard. The public deserves clear answers. What are the long-term environmental risks? What protections are truly in place? Who benefits financially? Who carries the burden if something goes wrong? And why does it feel like communities are always the last to fully know? We are constantly told these projects are progress, but progress for who? If local families face higher utility costs, increased environmental risk, strain on infrastructure, or a decline in quality of life while large corporations and data centers profit, then that is not shared prosperity. That is extraction. Our communities are not sacrifice zones for unchecked industrial expansion. I grew up in Western Pennsylvania. I know what happens when industries come in promising jobs and prosperity while communities are left carrying the long-term consequences decades later. We have seen polluted waterways. We have seen abandoned infrastructure. We have seen promises disappear once profits are secured. That history should make all of us more cautious, not less. I am asking the department and every official involved to slow this process down and ensure the public gets full transparency and rigorous environmental review before permits move forward. Because clean water is not negotiable. Public trust is not negotiable. And the health of future generations is not negotiable. People here tonight are not extremists. They are parents, workers, taxpayers, neighbors, and citizens demanding accountability before irreversible decisions are made. This community deserves to be heard before corporate interests are prioritized over public well-being. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ludwig. All right, up next we have Chloe Drew and Anna Goldman, please.
Good evening. I didn't prepare anything, but I would like
Chloe,
to.
though, right?
Oh yes,
Chloe.
that's my name. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm assuming most of you from the Department of Environmental Protection probably got into that role because you love the environment, and so maybe you have a fond memory of putting your hands in the stream and catching a frog, or watching a fish swim by through your legs when you're wading in streams when you were a child. I work with children. That is my role in life, is to share my love of the natural world with the next generation. And that's what I do. And I go out every single day with children into the streams here in Indiana County. I work with students at Homer City Elementary School, and I share with them my love of nature, and I get the joy of witnessing their love of nature. And so, if you could for a moment think about why you got into this role. As a child, you love nature, perhaps. Maybe you can think about the children in your life. Maybe you can think about the grandchildren in your life. What is the purpose? What is the cost of this pipeline that'll be powering this power plant, that'll be powering AI? As a child, you're not going to pick up a smartphone and look at a salamander and fall in love with that creek in your backyard. So I really just am imploring you to please speak up, use your voice, think about the morality in the situation. There are children relying on the fresh water and the streams in our region, and they're relying on you to have their back. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna Goldman?
Hi, Anna Goldman. I grew up in dirty Pittsburgh, moved out here years ago for a job. Now I'm retired, as you can see. Everyone has testified to the well-known effects of fracking, of breathing in the polluted air caused by gas plants. Pennsylvania shares electricity across a grid. Every place in Pennsylvania shares electricity, and now that the Homer City power plant is gone, there is no place in the state that is suffering because Homer City no longer makes electricity. We have sufficient electricity in the state. There is another polluting thing that needs to be known. Facebook, which I'm sorry I follow, knows I am interested in this thing, and I see posts from folks across the United States that live near these plants, these data plants, which internet has not needed for decades. Okay, so they live near these things, and another thing that they suffer from is noise. Humans hear a short range of noise. Animals hear, and birds and fishes and everything else hear on a much longer range. They say their birds, their pets, their farm animals are being annoyed, destroyed by this. That it affects everything. That they get headaches, they get things from just hearing the sound that we can't hear. Also, ultrasound, which we can't hear, is used as a weapon. The police literally have a gun, a thing that makes ultrasound noise, which we don't hear, to incapacitate people who are committing crimes. So this stuff that the power plant is going to make has the potential to incapacitate everybody, animals and us. We don't need any more electricity. We don't need this. Why are we even building this power plant that the state doesn't use? Why are we building a data center that the internet has gone for decades without using, that is going to put out sound that affects everyone? Done. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, last call for anyone who would like to give testimony. Going once. Anyone else like to give testimony? Going twice. Anyone else? All right, that concludes our hearing at 6:43 p.m. Please do note that there is data center information from the DEP on the table out front. There's